Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. My topic today is kind of a hybrid, but I wanted to start out with the U.com search engine launch. So this company, which I was unfamiliar with before this week, U.com, that's the brand, launched the search engine and showed up with $20 million in funding from Mark Benioff from Salesforce and some other folks. And it was interesting. I wrote about it. It's kind of interesting because they're trying, they're getting data from some structured sources, Yelp among them, and Reddit and TripAdvisor and a few others. And they're trying to do a kind of a different UI, which I thought was interesting. It wasn't particularly pleasing to me. I don't think I would use it as is. But I appreciate that they're trying, and I appreciate that people are trying to do something new and different. We had Neva, which launched, which is similar to Google in its layout, and these guys, and there's Brave and DuckDuckGo and some others that are out there. Major question whether anybody can get any meaningful usage because there's so much inertia around Google. Mike, I'm sure you have opinions about that.
Well, the first question was this new product was going to be subscription, correct?
U.com? No,
yes.
Neva is a subscription.
But is U.com a subscription?
No, as far as I know, there's no ads right now, and there's no subscription. I could be wrong about that, but that's my understanding currently. Right. I did not talk to them.
So I played with it, and I did a number of commercial searches, and their commercial searches are heavily weighted towards results from Walmart and Target, large entities.
They've sorted out the cesspool.
They've identified, top 300 retailers and include them. The other was I thought that their local search results were weak. They're basically Google API, which is not as good as Google. From where I sit, the future of local is mobile and local. And there's one big player now, and there's a player coming that I think is sort of under people's radar. The player now is Google, and the player coming is Apple. And they're clearly on stream to develop a locally based discovery environment that will include, I think, probably AR and other, enticing things. And to me, that's where the game's going to be played. And I think that between the two of them, it makes sense. It's one thing just having one entrant to fight against, Bing never succeeded. These 4 or 5 others are having a hard time. But I think having the two of them both with their platforms, unless they get separated from their platforms by antitrust regulations, I think that the opportunities in this market are really long, odd bets.
I think people are caught between wanting to do something that is not so radical that it disorients people and needing to do something different enough so it's differentiated. Because privacy by itself, which is DuckDuckGo's pitch, is really not enough. I mean, I am a DuckDuckGo user, but that's not number one, right? I'll use Google chiefly, and then occasionally I use DuckDuckGo. And I was watching the show Big Mouth, which you may not have seen. It's a cartoon on Netflix. It's very funny. It's also not for children. And they have a song in which they mention Lexapro, and that's some kind of pharmaceutical drug, and I didn't know what it was. It's an antidepressant. So I went to DuckDuckGo to look that up because I didn't want that in my search history for Google, right? And so that's the kind of situation where I use DuckDuckGo, where I don't want Google.
What other searches do you do?
Celebrities. So whenever there's a celebrity search, I'll go to DuckDuckGo because I just don't want to have any of that in my Discover feed from Google, right?
All right.
So anyway,
my son uses Brave. I asked him the other day about it. Over the 2 years he's been using Brave, he's accumulated, I think, roughly $150 in tokens from clicking through ads. Apparently, users get some amount of reward.
Is there any value?
There's a market for these things these days. You could convert it into Bitcoin or convert it into cash if you want. But he said it's worth about $150. So there is some, and that was 2 years worth of use.
I'm a Brave user. I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm using Brave for privacy and speed. So,
Well, Apparently,
Well,
it
so
is.
so how do you find it, David?
Brave is years better than Chrome in terms of the speed of the browser.
But in
and
terms of
the
search,
savings
you're
on
not.
bandwidth that it eats. Well, I use Google inside of Brave or
Right,
DuckDuckGo
right.
inside of Brave. So
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that privacy alone, it's interesting because privacy is sort of an intellectual thing. It's an idea for people. It's like the pitch from DuckDuckGo and others is we're not going to exploit your data, and people like that idea in the abstract, but I think it's not powerful enough to entice much usage away from Google. So I think you have to have a really different user experience.
but it's interesting that these bets are being made in this
Exactly.
environment.
Exactly.
Well,
Because wait, I didn't get to do my other item.
Hey, hang on
Go.
1 second. But the bets, $20 million to Benioff is like
Nothing.
pocket
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And it's not a
$20
really
to
big
us.
bet.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like me going to the casino and thinking, oh, I can blow $50 tonight kind of deal, right? It's that sort of level of investment.
But so you think these entrepreneurs are thinking that they're just going to ride this sort of privacy anxiety into some market share, and
No, I think that
what's the end game? Who's going to buy somebody like you.com?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I think they're betting on some regulatory environment in which they have a bigger opportunity than they do now.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair point.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.